Now, let me give you the latest on the bushfires in Australia.
The fire catastrophe in Australia, where the nation's largest evacuation
A dire warning this morning talking about climate change.
0.7 increase in CO2 emissions since last year.
The report is simply melting away. This morning along Australia's southeastern coast, with bushfires looming and extreme danger ahead.
Those pictures you just saw are a dire consequence of climate change. In this short documentary, I'm going to be giving you an insight on what our government is doing to help reduce our contribution to climate change and how it's going to help us in the long run. Climate change is becoming a really big issue in the UK at the moment. We didn't even meet our CO2 budget for 2019. As a teenager, I feel like we've had to take it into our own hands by joining pressure groups such as Extinction Rebellion. Let's see what some teachers think about this matter. Let's go. So, Miss, you voted in the recent election. Did you hear any manifestos that parties have put out to help reduce climate change?
Yeah, I heard that there was various parties talking about the amount of trees they would plant by certain dates and times, some more than others. There's also a lot publicised about emissions, about the reduction of emissions. It's got to be by 2050. Some are saying before that, some are saying that's not long enough, depending on the different parties.
BBC have recently published an article about the general election in 2019, stating that Labour had beaten other parties on climate change. The FOE made a league table where they marked each and every party that was running in the election from 45 points and ranked them from highest to lowest. The environmental campaign group scores were: Labour had 33, Greens had 31, Liberal Democrats had 30 and the Conservatives had 5.5. The Conservatives are our government and they ranked 5.5 in the environmental campaign. This isn't good. Many extreme left and right-wing newspapers have all unveiled that Boris Johnson's plans for the UK to help us prosper are to increase the number of flights despite the global crisis emergency. Boris Johnson believes he can put promises and make manifestos out into the public. Yes, that's what politicians do. That's how politics works, right? You have to put lies out there. You have to lure people in. He got the vote. That's what he wanted. He is now in government. He stayed in government. He was there in the first place and he stayed. What is he going to do? The things that he has given us, he's given us short-term solutions to long-term problems, right? He has given us a short-term solution, which is the travel, for another problem that the UK is facing, but it's short-term. We don't need more travel. That's why we're trying to increase riding bikes to work, getting a bike, it's going to decrease the carbon emission. We didn't even meet our carbon emission budget for 2019. That is how ignorant our country is. It's how ignorant the government is. They aren't doing anything to help the long-term problem, and the long-term problem is the global crisis emergency. That's what we need to drill into them. We are taking time out of our school attendance to go to these protests. It's not going to help us in any way if these short-term causes are completely defying what the long-term causes are. The long-term cause is the global crisis emergency. It's going to affect us. We are the teenagers. It's our generation. They'll be long gone by the time we start getting affected by this. It's not fair. We're trying to make our voices heard, and Boris Johnson is completely infringing his manifestos. Everything he has put out there and everything he has told the British population is a lie, is a lie.
To fulfil the repeated promises of Parliament to the people and come out of the EU on October the 31st. No ifs or buts.
He doesn't care about the global climate emergency. He wants our country to prosper. He cares about the economy. He cares about capitalism and everything the Conservatives stand for. This isn't fair. I'm not being biased, and it's not a one-sided opinion. You can clearly see through every single party's manifesto what they're trying to do. Yes, the Conservatives have put a manifesto out there, but if they're completely infringing upon what they've put out there to the British public, how are we supposed to trust them and feel that they're going to follow through with what they said? Whereas Labour are taking part in protests and Labour are going forward with things. So are the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party. The Green Party, that's what they stand for. But our government aren't doing anything. The government isn't doing anything. You don't see the Conservative Party going out to protest, do you? But you see Labour and the Lib Dems and you see the Green Party actually doing something, taking it under their wing to actually provide a voice for the young people, for us to give our voice on the global crisis. One of the biggest delicacies in Britain is the Gregs, but one delicacy I don't agree on are the climate change policies. Here we're in Cardiff city centre, where most of the protests took place for some of the climate change strikes. This is where Extinction Rebellion did most of their protests.